A young woman just wanted a simple after-work date, yet only a few hours later, she vanished as if she had never been there at all. When investigators traced her phone signal and realized the person she met was not who she believed, a chilling sense of dread swept through the entire case.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Police found a body they believe is Sydney Loofe.
But now they're trying to figure out what happened to the 24-year-old.
Sydney Irene Loofe was born on August 21, 1993, the daughter of Susie and George. She came into the world in Broken Bow, and throughout her childhood, the family moved often to different towns across Nebraska, giving Sydney the chance to experience many places and nurturing her love for nature. Growing up with a bright, positive energy, Sydney played several sports, including golf and basketball, and she especially loved fishing. However, during her years at Neligh Oakdale High School, she was diagnosed with scoliosis, a condition that forced her to step back from most of the activities she loved. Though her weekend fishing trips remained a joy she always tried to hold on to. Sydney was also an animal lover who adored her cat, Mimsy. After graduating in 2011, she stepped into adulthood by working as a clerk at Menards, a local home improvement store, using the job as both a way to make a living and to figure out her path forward. Sydney wasn't entirely sure what career path she wanted to pursue. Her job at Menards gave her temporary stability, but it didn't reflect the long-term goals she once imagined for herself. At the same time, mounting pressures in her life pushed her into a period of emotional difficulty, and by November 2010, things had grown even heavier. Fortunately, she had a loving support network. Her family was always by her side, and friends like Brooklyn and Crystal were there for her whenever she needed them. Still, beyond the emotional struggles, the feeling of not having a warm, steady presence to lean on made her life feel increasingly empty. She was emotionally attracted to women, but living in a place like Nebraska left her with almost no opportunities to meet someone who truly understood her. That lack of connection is what eventually led her to Tinder, where she hoped to find someone who could fill the void in her heart and offer her the kind of genuine relationship she longed for. Tinder is an app that allows people to connect, chat, and look for new relationships. In the first half of November 2017, Sydney matched with an account named Audrey. When Audrey matched back, the two began exchanging messages naturally, mostly talking about personal interests and their plan to meet up, relax a bit, have a steak dinner, and try their luck at a small casino. After a little more than 100 messages, they agreed to meet on November 14, 2017. Before heading out, Sydney even asked again to make sure the meetup would just be the two of them. Once she felt reassured, she drove to Audrey's apartment in Wilbur, Nebraska, carrying with her the hope of a simple, pleasant date in the middle of the cold winter. Their first meeting turned out to be calmer and more comfortable than Sydney expected, creating an easy sense of connection between them. Although there isn't much information about what exactly happened that evening, it was clearly pleasant enough for Audrey to invite Sydney over again the following night, once more at the Wilbur apartment. Sydney agreed, but because she already had a scheduled shift, she knew she needed to finish her work at Menards before she could start making plans for this second date. At 6 p.m. on November 15th, security cameras captured Sydney Loofe leaving Menards and walking toward her car. About 30 minutes later, she arrived home as usual. Not long after, Sydney posted a Snapchat update saying she was ready for her date, sounding genuinely excited for the second meeting. As soon as the post went up, Audrey drove to Sydney's house and sent her a Tinder message letting her know she had arrived. Sydney read it, slipped on her shoes, stepped outside, and got into Audrey's car. The two greeted each other briefly before the vehicle slowly rolled off into the cold winter night. The next morning, as dawn settled over the frozen fields of Nebraska, Lincoln began what seemed like an ordinary Thursday. But at Menards, the atmosphere quickly shifted when Sydney Loofe, someone known for being punctual and responsible, failed to show up for her shift. Calls from her coworkers went straight to voicemail, deepening their concern. They immediately reached out to Sydney's family, but that only increased the worry, as her parents hadn't heard from her since the previous evening. Realizing Sydney hadn't checked in with anyone since about 7 p.m. On November 15th, her mother instantly felt that something was terribly wrong. By the afternoon of November 16th, after no one had been able to reach her, the family officially reported Sydney missing to the police. The next morning, officers conducted a welfare check at Sydney's rental home and immediately noticed several troubling signs. Her SUV was still parked in the driveway and inside the house. Her wallet and glasses had been left behind, clear indications that she hadn't planned to be away for long. What worried them even more was that her cat, Mimsy, hadn't been fed, something completely out of character for Sydney, who always cared for her pet with great attention. This news left her family devastated and confused. To outsiders, it might have looked like a strange disappearance, but to those who truly knew Sydney, it was alarming to the point of heartbreak. Around the same time, at Audrey's apartment in Wilbur, other suspicious details were beginning to surface. The upstairs tenants complained about a strong smell of bleach coming from the basement, so overpowering that one family member became nauseous and developed a rash. What made things even stranger was that the air conditioning had been turned on in mid-November, an odd choice in Nebraska's signature cold. Within 2 days, investigators determined that Sydney's phone had last pinged off a cell tower near Audrey's apartment in Wilbur. But at that moment, they had no idea who Audrey actually was, only that she was likely the last person to see Sydney before she suddenly vanished. Identifying this woman became a critical task, yet there were almost no leads to work with. That's when an unexpected detective stepped in, none other than Brooklyn, Sydney's best friend. Brooklyn decided to take matters into her own hands. She downloaded Tinder, created a profile similar to Sydney's, and began searching within the area, hoping she would eventually match with Audrey. After many patient hours, she found the account, swiped right, and Audrey swiped right back. Once they matched, they exchanged phone numbers to plan a meetup. The moment Brooklyn received the number, she sent it directly to the police. For the first time since Sydney's disappearance, investigators finally had a real lead to follow.
This photo, posted on Snapchat Wednesday, was the last time anyone heard from 24-year-old Sydney Loofe. Lincoln police confirm investigators have spoken to the woman Loofe was planning to meet, but no other details. Tara Gehring, a coworker from Menards, says they let Loofe's family know when she didn't show up to work Thursday. Loofe's parents, George and Susie, tell us officers checked their daughter's place in Lincoln and that her SUV is still parked in the front. Investigators say they got leads that Loofe may have been in Wilbur, Nebraska since her disappearance. Loofe's friends all over Nebraska are helping spread the word via flyers and social media. Loved ones also sharing photos of Loofe's tattoos, anything to get her home.
With the phone number Brooklyn provided, investigators quickly traced the information and discovered that Audrey was only a fake name. The woman who met Sydney was actually Bailey Boswell, Not only was Bailey's apartment located in the same area where Sydney's phone had last been detected, it also matched the location where neighbors had complained about an overpowering smell of bleach. Even more concerning, Bailey didn't live alone. She shared the apartment with Aubrey Trail, a man who was in a romantic relationship with her. The name Audrey on Tinder turned out to be nothing more than a modified version of Aubrey, a way to hide Bailey's real identity behind a layer of anonymity. This discovery instantly placed the pair at the center of the investigation into Sydney Loofe's mysterious disappearance. So who exactly were Bailey Boswell and Aubrey Trail? Starting with Bailey, she grew up in Leon, Iowa, in a family with a strong educational background. In school, Bailey was known as a standout, friendly, energetic, and especially gifted in sports. She excelled at basketball and was once among the fastest runners in the state. Yet behind that bright exterior, her childhood carried a deep emotional wound. Her father passed away in a heartbreaking tragedy when she was very young. After graduating high school, Bailey's life began drifting in a direction that was harder and harder to control. She started spending time with the wrong crowds, fell into issues involving harmful substances, and made choices that slowly pulled her away from the future she once seemed destined for. It was during this period that Bailey met Aubrey through Backpage, a website that once included sections for sensitive services. At the time, she was looking for a local sugar daddy, and from the moment she connected with Aubrey, she was gradually drawn into the unhealthy habits and distorted lifestyle he encouraged, shaping her behavior and mindset until she became a very different version of the promising girl she once had been. Beginning in 1999, Aubrey had an extensive history involving fraud, theft, and serious violations tied to illicit dealing. One of his usual methods was writing fake checks at small antique stores and then taking the items he obtained to pawn shops to collect money. Beyond that, Aubrey consistently displayed an extremely manipulative style in his intimate relationships. He used tactics with a cult-like tone, creating a tightly controlled psychological system over the women around him. In fact, Aubrey viewed himself as the leader of a distorted group in which he called himself a vampire dad, while the women who followed him were called witches. He paid them $200 per week as long as they obeyed his strange rules, such as checking in with him every 3 hours, avoiding conversations with other men, and addressing him by that special title. These rules created a warped, unhealthy environment, even if they did not directly cause physical harm. However, by the final months of 2017, things took a far darker turn when some newly recruited women were asked to accept a requirement that they refused to cross, according to Aubrey, to become a true witch. They had to witness or directly take part in ending someone's final breath, a demand that crossed every ethical line and pushed the group into an unimaginably disturbing direction. At the time Sydney disappeared, Aubrey and Bailey were facing a court order requiring them to pay $400,000 for their involvement in a fraud scheme in Kansas. On top of that, they were entangled in several smaller allegations, but instead of resolving them legally, the two chose to flee to avoid responsibility. As key clues began aligning, investigators were finally able to directly connect Bailey and Aubrey to Sydney Loofe's disappearance. However, even with a clearer idea of where to look, the situation had already escalated into something far more serious. On November 19th, 4 days after Sydney's last contact, police obtained a search warrant and went to inspect the Wilbur apartment. But when they knocked, the unit was completely silent. During the search, officers noticed certain areas on the walls that appeared to have been scrubbed with bleach, as if someone had tried to clean away something. The upstairs tenants continued to report that a strong bleach odor had been rising for days, to the point that a family member became nauseous and developed a rash. Although authorities immediately began searching for Bailey and Aubrey, the couple had vanished without leaving any clear trail, and it would take time before the apartment could be fully analyzed for critical details. As the investigation expanded, police uncovered even more troubling information about the pair's secret life. And just days later, surveillance footage began revealing things no one had expected. On November 14th, the day of Sydney's first date, at 5:08 p.m., Aubrey and Bailey checked into a hotel near Lincoln, just a short distance from where Sydney worked. The next day, at about 10:25 a.m., only a few hours before Sydney and Bailey's second meetup, security cameras recorded the pair entering a Home Depot in Lincoln. There, they purchased a series of items that would later draw intense attention from investigators, including a 12-inch hacksaw, 2 gallons of Clorox bleach, a folding saw, 30-gallon trash bags, and a utility knife with replacement blades. About an hour after leaving Home Depot, Aubrey went to Menards, where Sydney was working, and happened to walk right past her. Sydney didn't recognize him, as she had never known Aubrey even existed. At Menards, Aubrey bought more bleach and left after about 20 minutes. An odd coincidence occurred just as Sydney returned to her workstation. Cameras captured Aubrey once again, this time crossing the parking lot on the opposite side. By 12:41 p.m., another camera recorded Aubrey and Bailey at Aardvark Antique Mall, where they bought a food grinder, yard clippers, and another folding saw. On November 28th, the 13th day since Sydney went missing, authorities officially identified Aubrey and Bailey as individuals directly connected to the case. What stood out was that both of them had already vanished for an entire week, making the investigation much more difficult. But right after their names were publicly released, Aubrey and Bailey suddenly resurfaced, not at a police station, but through a video posted on Sydney Loofe's own Facebook page.
Good morning, Lincoln and Omaha and probably several other places. This is Aubrey Trail and this is Bailey Boswell. I guess y'all also know her as Audrey. But we've spent the last few days watching ourselves being slammed and crucified in the newspapers and the news and everything else, so we thought it was time we had our say. The Lincoln Police Department apparently wants everyone to believe that we're hiding, that we haven't talked to them, that we're avoiding them. You've already crucified us in the newspapers. You've already crucified us on Facebook. You know, in America, I sure thought it was a trial first, but I guess not. You've heard all of this stuff about my criminal history. All true. As far as I know, I'm not wanted for anything. I'm a person of interest, and I'm not really running from anything. I pray for Sydney. I hope she's found soon. I wish the family the best. I'm sorry that she wasn't with you on Thanksgiving. And that's pretty much all I can say for now. So this has pretty much cost me my life, and I appreciate that from the Lincoln Police Department and the FBI and all those other agencies. Here's Bailey to tell you whatever she wants to.
Hi, good morning. I'm Bailey, Audrey on Tinder, and this really isn't about me. This is about Sydney. I met her on a Tuesday. We drove around Lincoln, smoked weed, had a great time. We hit it off. Picked her up the next night at her house. We drove around, smoked weed again. I went to take her home, and she asked me to drop her off at a friend's house. So, I haven't heard from her since. I guess I just want the family to know that I'm truly sorry and I didn't have anything to do with this, and I hope that Sydney is found very soon. She is a sweet, amazing girl.
I hope also that Sydney's found soon. We wish the family the best. We're sorry you're going through this. The police department is going to do what suits them best. Yeah, I know that's coming from a criminal, so you'll believe what you will as far as the police department is concerned. But as far as I'm concerned, what they're chasing us around like dogs, I wish the family the best. I mean, no disrespect to anyone. I wish Sydney the best. But as far as the police department, you.
Yeah.
After attempting to appear publicly to claim he was not involved, Aubrey posted another video, this time to complain about the critical comments, about issues of free speech, and about what he believed was the American public's misunderstanding of him.
Hi folks, Aubrey Trail here. Few little things I want to talk about. I've been watching all day. I just watched the news, that's why I'm making this. But I've been watching a lot of posts and comments today. So far today, from the comments, we have apparently murdered this lady. Just curious, are we not allowed to tell our side of this? And of course, again, I'm just a criminal, so you're going to believe none of this, and I guess it's really irrelevant because we've pretty much decided to turn ourselves in and see where this goes. If I'm a thief, I'm a thief, but I mean, goddamn, I've never killed anyone in my life. I've never hurt a female in my life. So take that for whatever the hell it's worth. I'm a crook. I'm a thief. I've been all my life. Okay. But I'm not what you're trying to make me out to be. You say we're disgusting, that you guys are pissed at us. I don't think we're the disgusting ones, because what the fuck happened to America? Trial, freedom of speech. What happened to not guilty until proven guilty? And this is what I look like. You say we're hiding. This is what? Blue eyes, teeth, brown hair. Hi. Not hiding at all. Have a nice day.
To be completely serious, Aubrey seemed to speak without control in that video, and even though the clip ran for more than 11 minutes, what he said offered almost no useful information for the investigation. He even accidentally switched to the front camera while turning the video off, revealing private images of Bailey, a detail that only highlighted the chaos and lack of control in their behavior. However, their time on the run didn't last long. On November 30th, police tracked them down and arrested both Aubrey and Bailey at a rundown motel in Branson, Missouri, because there still wasn't enough evidence to link them to Sydney's disappearance at that moment. Authorities temporarily detained them on fraud-related charges. Among their belongings, officers found maps, sleeping bags, hiking boots, and a fairly detailed plan to flee to Mexico, showing that the two had prepared carefully for a long-term escape. Even after being arrested, Aubrey and Bailey continued to insist they were innocent. While they spent their first nights in a jail cell, the FBI quietly pulled data from their phones to retrace their movements during the period when Sydney went missing, an important step in determining whether there were any locations where they might have attempted to hide evidence. On Monday, December 4, 2017, exactly 19 days after Sydney disappeared, investigators found a portion of her remains. By comparing the timing and location of the cell phone signals, they discovered that Aubrey and Bailey's route had stopped at a windswept gravel road north of the town of Edgar, Nebraska, about an hour's drive west of Aubrey's basement apartment.
Yesterday afternoon, December 4th, a body was discovered in rural Clay County.
A tragic end to a weeks-long search for a missing Lincoln woman. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Police found a body they believe is Sydney Loofe.
But now they're trying to figure out what happened to the 24-year-old.
In a press conference this morning, the FBI said they found the body near Clay Center, which is about 90 miles west of Lincoln. Police have been looking for Sydney Loofe for 3 weeks since she was last seen on November 15th, following her digital footprint and searching across the state. That's how they ended up in Clay County.
When authorities reached this remote area, it took only a few minutes before they spotted a black trash bag in the roadside ditch. And this was only the beginning. Over the next day, officers gradually discovered 13 portions of Sydney's remains, with one portion still not found to this day. The traces left behind showed that these parts had been separated using a tool that made fine cuts, matching the type of equipment Aubrey and Bailey had purchased earlier. In total, 16 locations were identified as connected sites where investigators recovered portions of her remains or other items, such as a tarp, rubber gloves, bleach-cleaned clothing, trash bags, and even a sauna suit. It was clear that the person responsible for this tragedy had intentionally scattered the evidence across the widest area possible. In addition, Sydney's driver's license, Visa card, and phone case were found along Highway 41, while her car keys were found near Highway 15. All of those routes matched perfectly with Aubrey and Bailey's movements during the days Sydney was missing. The discovery of Sydney's remains shook the entire state of Nebraska, and the grief grew even heavier for her family and the friends who loved her so deeply. On December 11, 2017, the Loofe family held a private memorial service at Grace Lutheran Church, a place Sydney had visited many times during her life.
Friends hugged and cried with one another tonight here at the Sunken Gardens in Lincoln, trying to remember the life of their dear friend Sydney Loofe with a candlelight vigil. Underneath the Sunken Gardens pavilion, dozens embraced and amidst the tears celebrated the life of Sydney Loofe as candlelights radiated this somber circle.
She has the sweetest soul. She'd do anything for anyone. She had a heart of gold.
Addison Mills and Michaela Miller were among the many of Loofe's co-workers here.
And it's been mentally draining for all of us. It's been physically exhausting. And we're keeping faith that we get justice for this.
While justice has yet to be determined, they are surprised by the turnout.
It's mind-blowing. I can't believe all the support that we've gotten from strangers, from everyone. It means the world to us.
Although the evidence increasingly pointed to Aubrey and Bailey's involvement in this tragedy, both of them continued to insist they were innocent for several more weeks. However, by January 24th, nearly 2 months after the remains were found, contradictions in their story began to surface. It was at this point that Aubrey suddenly took full responsibility. In a later phone call, he admitted he was the one who caused Sydney's passing, but claimed that everything had been an accident. In the months that followed, while still facing multiple fraud-related charges, Aubrey repeatedly offered different confessions, each shifting in a confusing new direction. At first, he claimed he was the only one responsible for the tragedy that led to Sydney's passing. Soon after, he said Sydney had fallen into a dangerous situation during a third meeting with Bailey. Then, in another version, Aubrey claimed the heartbreaking incident happened while the three of them were participating in a distorted fantasy scenario, insisting he accidentally caused Sydney to lose her breath during an intimate moment. In the next account, Aubrey changed the story again. He said he produced content for sensitive interests and had paid Sydney to take part in a scene involving restricted breathing, once more insisting that everything spiraled out of control, leading to an unintended tragedy. Regardless of which version he told, every story Aubrey offered contradicted the others and was completely inconsistent with the objective evidence investigators had gathered.
There was lots of violent sex involved. There was strangulation involved. It was not supposed to go as far as it did, but it did. Well, that means I was what more you want. But you don't know what it was like tonight. You don't remember don't remember why you were going to places. She was laid as she was because we believe in that position, and because of what's missing from her, that she will come back quicker.
On June 11th, 2018, both Aubrey and Bailey were officially charged with first-degree murder in connection with Sydney Loofe's passing. In addition, they faced a charge for improperly handling human remains. Because the death penalty is still legal in Nebraska, prosecutors announced that they would pursue the highest possible sentence for both of them. Although Aubrey had previously said he deserved punishment for the tragedy that happened to Sydney, he still entered a plea of not guilty in court, wanting to present his own version of events. Bailey took the same approach. When Aubrey's trial began, a wide range of items collected from locations believed to be connected to the case were presented to the jury, including handcuffs, rope, a collar and pet leash, and several other personal objects. Investigators also recovered pieces of electrical cord found near some of Sydney's remains, along with clothing and gloves that had been chemically treated, all of which helped clarify the picture of what took place before the tragedy came to light. Several women who had once been involved in the distorted group Aubrey created, the one he referred to as his vampire dad family, also appeared in court to testify, sharing the unsettling experiences they had while living under his control. Ashley Hills, one of his former girlfriends and a member of this group, stated that she had lived with Bailey and Aubrey for an extended period of time. Ashley explained that Aubrey ran the group like a cult-like community, gathering mainly women who were going through emotional struggles and imposing strange, highly controlling rules on them. Aubrey called these women witches, while Bailey was considered the witch queen, serving as a second in command. Ashley also said the couple frequently talked about dark subjects, including torture, supernatural stories, and other disturbing behaviors that frightened many members of the group. Despite the testimony from these women, Aubrey continued to deny everything and insisted he had been misunderstood. Right before the jury selection phase began, he admitted only to improperly handling human remains while still denying any responsibility for Sydney's passing. And then, what happened next stunned the entire courtroom.
Please be seated.
Bailey is innocent and I curse you all.
Stop recording.
Just as a witness was about to take the stand, Aubrey suddenly shouted, "Bailey is innocent and I curse all of you!" and immediately inflicted an injury on his own throat using a small, sharp object he had hidden on him. He was rushed to the hospital, and although he missed part of the trial, Aubrey fully recovered, received stitches, and was transferred back to the jail. How he managed to obtain a sharp object capable of causing such an injury has never been clearly explained, though many suspected it might have been a razor blade. No matter how shocking the incident was, the trial continued without Aubrey's presence, and the judge instructed the jury to completely disregard the dramatic outburst. Unsurprisingly, on July 11, 2019, after less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Aubrey was found guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy leading to the tragedy, and improperly handling human remains. A little more than a year later, Bailey was also convicted on all 3 charges during her separate trial. However, even though her charges were identical to Aubrey's, their sentences were not the same. On November 8, 2021, Bailey Boswell was given life in prison, while on June 9, 2021, Aubrey received a death sentence by lethal injection. The 3-judge panel described Aubrey's actions as cold, calculated, and premeditated. The difference in sentencing came from the court's conclusion that Bailey's actions did not meet Nebraska's legal threshold for exceptional cruelty, a requirement for imposing the death penalty. One of the most significant pieces of evidence in the case was a set of secret letters discovered between Aubrey and Bailey before the trial. Even though they used a type of coded writing similar to Morse code to hide the content, investigators decoded it and found that the letters included admissions from both of them about their roles in the tragedy that claimed Sydney's life. Today, Bailey is serving her sentence at the Nebraska Correctional Center for Women in York, while Aubrey remains on death row at the Tecumseh State Correctional Institution, bringing his dark and criminal path to a close. The legacy Sydney Loofe left behind lives not only in the grief of those who loved her, but also in the good that continues to grow from such a heartbreaking story. The Facebook page, Celebrating Sydney Loofe, once a place where the community gathered to hope and pray for her safe return, reached nearly 30,000 followers. Today, the page has been renamed Remembering Sydney Loofe, becoming a space where people honor her, share love, and keep Sydney's light from ever fading. In addition, the nonprofit organization Set Me Free Project, which works in the field of anti-trafficking education and prevention, created a $3,000 scholarship in Sydney's name. It is awarded to students pursuing fields such as criminology, online safety, and social work, people who will continue fighting to protect vulnerable lives. In that way, Sydney remains present in every effort to safeguard and uplift others, serving as a reminder that even in tragedy, compassion can still take root. As we close this haunting story, Sydney Loofe reminds all of us of how fragile trust can be and how important it is to protect ourselves when stepping into new relationships. Her heartbreaking passing shows that while everyone longs for love and connection, listening to our instincts, keeping loved ones informed, and staying alert to unusual signs are essential to avoiding unforeseen danger. Thank you for following today's story in True Crime Documentary. If you want to honor Sydney, please share this video so her story can reach more people, and leave a comment as a tribute to this strong yet deeply challenged young woman. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can join us for the next story. I'll see you in the next video, and may you always stay safe, along with the people you love.